A very good morning, students. Welcome to science session for class 9, and in this session we are going to see the unit 18, organization of tissues. Now here we are going to see about the plant tissues. Under the plant tissues we will see the meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues, simple tissues, complex tissues. Under the animal tissues we will be learning about the epithelial tissues, connective tissues, muscular tissues and nervous. A very good morning, students. Welcome to science session for class 9, and in this session we are going to see the unit 18, organization of tissues. Now here we are going to see about the plant tissues. Under the plant tissues we will see the meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues, simple tissues, complex tissues. Under the animal tissues we'll be learning about the epithelial tissues, connective tissues, muscular tissues and nervous tissues. Now apart from that we are going to learn about the cell divisions. There are three types of cell divisions, that is amitosis, mitosis and meiosis. Let's go into the session, children. Now we know that the unicellular organisms consist of single cell, isn't it? Now the multicellular organisms consist of the millions of cells that are grouped together, isn't it? So these cells combine to form the tissues together the organs, and organs together forms the organ systems that perform a specific function. Now here we are going to learn about the tissues that is present in the plants and animals. Now here the plants tissues are classified into meristems or meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. Meristematic tissues are the one which undergo cell divisions. These are immature cells. So this undergoes cell division and this is responsible for the growth of the plant. Now especially these meristematic tissues are present in the apex of the stem, leaf, root, in the cambium, etc. Now when you see the characteristics of this meristematic tissues, they are the living cells, and these cells will be oval in shape or sometimes round in shape. This consists of dense cytoplasm, large nuclei and small vacuole. They undergo mitotic cell divisions and they do not store the food materials. Now we can see the types of meristems based on their position. Now here the first one is the apical meristem. Since it is present in the apex of the roots and the shoot system, it is called as the apical meristem, and this brings about the increase in the length. It is responsible for the growth of the plant. The next one is the intercalary meristem, and this intercalary meristems are found between the permanent tissues and the primary tissues, especially in the base of the leaves or in the internodes. The next one is the lateral meristem, and these are responsible for the thickness of the plant. The plant grow in thickness, isn't it? So this is responsible for the thickness of the plant part. Next is the permanent tissues. These are the matured cells, and this do not undergo the cell divisions, and these are classified into the simple tissues and the complex tissues. The simple tissues consist of the homogeneous tissues because it consists of the similar cells that are structurally and functionally the same. Now examples you can say the parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. First we'll see the parenchymatous cells. These are the permanent cells and these are the living cells. Sometimes it will be oval in shape or sometimes round in shape. And in the aquatic plants, the parenchymatic cells consist of the large intercellular space and it is called as the aerenchymatic cells. Here you can see in the picture it is the aerenchymatic cells, isn't it? Now when exposed to sunlight, this absorbs the sunlight and develops chlorophyll. So it is called as the chlorenchymatic cells. Now here you can see, isn't it, a green color pigment that is present in the cells because it develops the chloroplast when exposed to sunlight, and this type of parenchymatic cells are called as the chlorenchymatic cells because of the presence of the chloroplast. The function of the parenchymatic cells is the storage of food, absorption, secretion and also the buoyancy. The next is the cholenchymatic tissues, and these are the living tissues, and these are especially found beneath the epidermis, and it covers or it supports the inner tissues, and these cells will be mostly the elongated one, and it is uh, unevenly thickened. You can see here, isn't it? It has thick walls, but it is unevenly thickened, and these cells are mostly the rectangular shape, or sometimes it is tapered. It is flattened at the ends, and it also provides the mechanical support to the organs. Next is the sclerenchymatic tissues. Sclerenchyma consists of the cells with thick walls, and these are the dead cells because they do not possess the protoplast, and these are divided into the fibers and the sclerites. Fibers, you can see the first picture, it is an elongated parenchymatic cells which is pointed at both the ends. The walls are also lignified, isn't it? The average length of the fibers will be 1 to 3 millimeters, and sometimes it may also extend, it may also grow longer, ranging from 20 millimeter to 550 millimeter. The next one is the sclerites. Sclerites are widely distributed in the plant body, and it will be mostly the broad isodiametric cells, and it is also seen prominently on the walls and also in the pits. Next is the complex tissues, and these complex tissues are made up of more than one type of the cells, but they work together to perform in specific functions. Complex tissues are mostly consist of the parenchymatic cells and the sclerenchymatic cells, and the common examples I can say is the xylem and the phloem. Here you can see the picture that consists of the xylem complex tissues. Now here this xylem is an conducting tissues, in the sense it conducts water, minerals and nutrition from the roots to upper part of the leaf, and the xylem gives the mechanical support to the plant, and it consists of the xylem tracheids, xylem fibers, xylem vessels and xylem parenchyma. Let's see them one by one. Xylem tracheids, so these will be an elongated dead cells. Sometimes it will be hard and thick, and it also consists of the lignified walls, and this helps in the conduction of water and provides mechanical support to the plant. Next is the xylem fibers. Now fibers are always elongated, lignified and pointed at the ends, isn't it? Now this also provides the mechanical support to the plant. Next is the xylem vessel, which is very important. It is long cylindrical tube-like structures. Now these cells are dead because they do not contain the protoplast, and their structure looks like a water pipe. The main function of the xylem vessel is to transport water, and it also provides the mechanical support. Next is the xylem parenchyma. These are the living cells, and the function of the xylem parenchyma is to store the food and the fatty substance. Now the next is the phloem. Phloem is also a complex tissues, but this is responsible for the transportation of the nutrients from the leaves to the other parts of the plant, and this consists of sieve elements, companion cells, phloem fibers and phloem parenchyma. Now sieve elements, now this consists of an sieve tubes. So this tubes will be an elongated tube like structures. This entire sieve tube consists of sieve plates, which consist of the small minute pores. The main function of the sieve tube or the sieve plates is the transportation of the food from the leaves to the different parts of the plant or to the storage organ of the plant. Next is the companion cells. Now this companion cell is accompanied by the sieve tube, or the sieve tube is accompanied by the companion cell in equal length, right? It will be in equal length of that of the sieve tube. Now this will also be an elongated one since it is attached to the sieve tube. Now here This companion cells consist of the nuclei. You can see in the picture, isn't it? It consists of the nuclei. Next is the phloem parenchyma. These are also the living cells. It consists of the cytoplasm and the nuclei. The main function of the phloem parenchyma is to store the food material. Next, we'll see the difference between the xylem and the phloem. This is a very, very important question. Now here the xylem conducts water and minerals. I said earlier, isn't it? Phloem transports the food material. Now the conduction of the water in the xylem is unidirectional because the water from the roots is transported to the upper part of the plant. Now here the food materials that is transported from the leaves to the different parts of the plant, isn't it? So it is bi-directional, both in the upward direction and also in the downward direction. The conducting channels that is present in the xylem is the tracheae and the vessels. I said that the vessel are the main responsible for the conduction of water, isn't it? Now here in the phloem, main channel that conducts the food is the sieve tubes. Here the xylem consists of tracheids, vessels, parenchyma and the xylem fibers, while the phloem consists of the companion cells, phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers. Now let's see the difference between the meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues. Meristematic tissues consist of dense cytoplasm and the vacuoles are nearly absent. The permanent tissues consist of large vacuoles. The intercellular space, if you see, it is absent in the meristematic tissues, but the intercellular space are present in the permanent tissues. And here the cells in the meristematic tissues, the cells are small, spherical, and here it is of different shape. The cell wall will be thick and elastic because these are the growing tissues which is responsible for the growth of the plant. Here the cell wall will be thick because they are permanent. The cell division do not takes place. Here the nucleus is large and prominent in the meristematic tissues. Here in the permanent tissues the nucleus is small. The cell division takes place in the meristematic tissues, but the cell division do not takes place in the permanent tissues. Both the meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues provides the mechanical support, but in addition to the mechanical support, elasticity is one of the property in the meristematic tissues. The epithelial tissues composed of one or more layers of these cells, and it mostly covers the skin which forms the outer covering of the body, and it protects the internal organ also, and the cells are arranged very close to one another, so the intercellular space between them will be less. Each epithelial cells have a base membrane, and this also lacks the blood vessels, and this epithelial tissues are further divided into simple epithelium and the compound epithelium. Simple epithelium consists of only single layer of cells, and this consists of a basement membrane, and the compound epithelium consists of the layers of cell, and the last layer, that is the deepest layer, rest on the basement. Now if you see the functions of the general epithelial tissues, it protects the inner cells from injury and infections. It also helps in the absorption of water, and it also helps in the excretion of the waste material, and some epithelial tissues involves in the secretion functions, example sweat, saliva or the mucus. Now let's see the simple epithelium. We said that the simple epithelium consists of single layer of cells. Now this also consists of the following types. Now the first type is the squamous epithelium. Now here you can see the picture of the squamous epithelium, isn't it? Now this squamous epithelium consists of single layer of cells, isn't it? And these cells are irregular boundaries, isn't it? They do not have a proper shape, isn't it? And this squamous epithelium is known as pavement epithelium. It occupies the lining of the buccal cavity, alveoli, tubules of the kidneys, the covering of skin and the tongue. So it protects the body from the injury, drying and infection. The next is the cuboidal epithelium. Here you can see in the picture, it is arranged in such a way that the cubes are placed adjacent to one another, isn't it? The nucleus that is present will be round and it will be at the center, and these tissues are found in the thyroid, salivary glands, sweat glands, and pancreas. This is also found in the microvilli that is present in the kidneys, isn't it, to increase the absorption of the surface area. The main functions of the cuboidal epithelium is secretion and absorption. Next is the ciliated epithelium. Ciliated epithelium is named after the presence of an hair-like structure at the top. You can see the hair-like outgrowth, isn't it? So because of that cilia, it is called as the ciliated epithelium, and these are found in the windpipe, bronchi, kidney tubules, fallopian tubules of the oviducts, etc. The main function of this epithelial tissues, it involves in the movement of the particles or the mucus in a specific direction. The next one is the glandular epithelium. This is named because it functions as a gland to perform a specialized gland, and this also secretes, this cells secretes chemical substances at the epithelial surface, and these are found in the gastric glands, pancreatic glands, and the intestinal glands. Next is the compound epithelium. This consists of more than one layer of cells, isn't it? You can see it is multi-layered cell, isn't it? The main function of this compound epithelium is to protect the inner tissues from the mechanical injury and the chemical injury. Now here this can be found in the buccal cavity, pharynx, and also as an surface of the skin, dry surface of the skin. Next is the connective tissues. These connective tissues are widely distributed in the animal body, and it provides the structural framework and it supports the different tissues and the organs. This connective tissue is classified into connective tissue proper, supportive connective tissue, dense connective tissue, and fluid connective tissue. Let's see them one by one. Now let's see the areolar connective tissues. These consist of the cells as well as the fibers. You can see in thread-like structures crossing each other in every direction, isn't it? So it is suspended. All the cells and the fibers are suspended in a fluid which is called as the matrix, and this joins the skin to the muscles, and it fills the space inside the organ. It is found around the muscles, blood vessels, and the nerves, and this helps in the repair of tissues. If there is any injury, it helps in the repair of the tissues. Next is the adipose tissues. Adipose tissues, as the name indicates, this is responsible for the storage of the fat, isn't it? So it serves as in fat reservoir. Now this is found in the sebaceous tissues, in the internal organs around the heart and the kidneys. So since it is in fat reservoirs, it acts as an shock absorbance around the kidneys and especially in the eyeballs, and this also regulates the body temperature. Next is the supportive connective tissues. This is also called as skeletal connective tissues. So since it is in skeletal connective tissues, it gives the framework to the body, and it also protects the various organs inside the body and also helps in locomotion. Now this supportive connective tissues consist of the cartilage and the bone. Here in the picture you can see the cartilage. The cartilage will be the soft, flexible in nature, and the matrix consists of the large cartilage cells, and this is called as chondrocytes, and the cells that is present in the fluid filled space, isn't it? There is a fluid filled space, isn't it? Though the cells that is present here is called as the lacunae. These cartilages are found in the tip of the nose, external ear, that is pinna, long nose, trachea, larynx, and this provides flexibility to the body parts. The next one is the bone. Now on the other hand, this will be a solid, rigid, strong and non-flexible connective tissue, isn't it? As the name indicates, we know it, isn't it? Now the matrix that is in the bone cells will be rich in calcium, and the matrix will be in the form of in concentric circles. You can see in the picture, children, it is clearly visible, isn't it? It consists of the concentric circles that is called as the lamellae, and this bone cells that is present in this is called as the osteocytes. Now the concentric circles will be connected together by a network which is called as the canuculi. Now here at the center you can find an whole cavity, isn't it? So these are the bone marrow, and we know that the bones provides the shape and the structural framework, isn't it? And it also supports and protects the organs, internal organs. The next one is the dense connective tissues. These are also called as fibrous connective tissues because this tissues consist of fibrous and fibroblast. Now the examples are the tendons and the ligaments. First, we'll see what is tendons. Tendons are the cord-like structures, wire-like structure. It will be strong and it joins the skeletal muscles to the bones, and this tendons provides strength and flexibility to the movement. Now this consists of the parallel bundles of the collagen fibers. These are the fibers that is present in rows, that is, it consists of the fibroblast. Next is the ligaments. Now here you can see in the picture, children, it connects bones to bones, isn't it? So it is highly elastic structure and it will have great strength, and that connects bone to the bone. Now here this allows the movement. It helps in the normal movement of the body. Next is the fluid connective tissues. As the name indicates, it consists of fluids, isn't it? So lymph and the blood comes under this fluid connective tissues. Let's see them one by one. Now the fluid connective tissues are the liquids that connects the different parts of the body, isn't it? Now here the cells are loosely packed or suspended in a matrix which is called as the plasma. Now here the blood contains corpuscles or called as cells. For example, the red blood cells, the white blood cells and the platelets, and these are suspended in an fluid that is called as matrix, that is called as the plasma. The red blood cells are also called as erythrocytes, white blood cells are called as leukocytes, and the platelets, that is called as the thrombocytes. Now here this plasma contains the inorganic salts and the organic substances also, and this helps in the transportation of nutrition and the food to the various parts of the body. Now here the red blood corpuscles, when you say the shape, it will be an oval shape, circular, it is biconcave, it will be a disc-like cells, and you can see in the picture at the beginning of the screen you have that erythrocytes, isn't it? And this do not contain nucleus, but it carries a pigment. It contains a pigment which is called as the respiratory pigment, and the pigment is called as hemoglobin, and this hemoglobin is mainly responsible for the transportation of oxygen to the various parts of the tissues and cells. The next one is the white blood corpuscles, which is called as leukocytes, and this leukocytes contains nucleus. I said that the erythrocytes do not contain nucleus, isn't it? But this leukocytes will be larger in size and it contains nucleus and it will be colorless, so it is called as leukocytes. And here this will show an amoeboid movement, and this plays a very important role in protecting the body from diseases. So that is called as the defense mechanism. Now what this defense mechanism is, it engulfs the foreign body and destroys the foreign bodies. Now this white blood cells consist of two types. The first one is the granulocytes and agranulocytes. Granulocytes is one which consists of granules. It will be in irregular shape and it consists of the cytoplasmic granules. Here in the picture you can see, isn't it, eosinophil, neutrophil and the basophil consist of the granules, dotted structure, isn't it? So these are called as granules, cytoplasmic granules. Since it contains that, it is called as the granulocytes. Now agranulocytes, it lacks the cytoplasmic granules, and the examples are the monocytes and the lymphocytes. Next we'll see what are blood platelets. Now platelets will be smaller in size. It helps in the clotting of the blood. The next is the lymph. Now lymph will be colorless fluid and it seeps out from the blood capillaries. It consists of plasma, white blood cells and proteins. It helps in the exchange of proteins between the blood and the tissue fluids. Next is the muscle tissues. This muscle tissues consist of muscle cells. Most of them will be long cylindrical fibers that are arranged parallel to one another. Here in the picture you can see that these are cylindrical and arranged one besides the other, that is arranged in parallel. Now the muscle tissues are divided into skeletal muscles, smooth muscles and cardiac muscles. Here you can see in the picture, isn't it? Now we'll see what is skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles are attached to the bones and these are responsible for the body movement, and this can also be said as in voluntary muscles, and this muscles will be mostly consist of the fibers which are elongated, cylindrical, and it will be unbranched. There is no branch. Here you can see, isn't it? They are arranged parallel to one another, and this consists of multi-nucleus. There are many nucleus. Now this can be seen in the biceps and the triceps of the arms, which undergo the rapid contraction, isn't it? Now the next one is the smooth muscles, which is uninucleated. One strips consist of only one nuclei, and the fibers do not bear any stripes, isn't it? Now this will be an involuntary muscles, and these are occupied by the walls of the blood vessels, gastric glands, intestinal villi, urinary bladder, etc. consist of this smooth muscles. The next one is the cardiac muscles. Now this especially the muscles that is present in the heart. The muscle fibers will be cylindrical, it will be branched. You can see it is branched, isn't it? And it is uninucleated. The sense it consists of the single nuclei. And the branches that is joined together, it is called as the intercalated disc, because it is joined, isn't it? Two fibers are joined together, isn't it? So this is called as intercalated disc. Mostly the contraction of the cardiac muscles is involuntary, and it will be very rhythmic. Next is the nerve tissues. Nerve tissues consist of the neurons or the nerve cell, isn't it? It will be the largest cell in the body, and you can see the structure. Now this consists of the cell body, which is called as the cytin, with the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Then comes the axon, and at the end you have the terminal endings. Cytin consists of an highly branched structure which is called as the dendrites, and the axon is the single long fiber like structures, and at the end you have the fine terminal branches which is called as the terminal ending. Next we'll see the cell division. What is cell division? A cell that divides into the daughter nucleus, isn't it? So that is called as the cell division. Now here the cell division is of three types. One is the amitosis, which is called as the direct division, mitosis, which is the indirect division, and the meiosis, which is called as the reduction division. Let's see them one by one. In amitosis cell division, first the nucleus elongates. You can see the difference between the first picture and the second picture, isn't it? Here the nucleus is round in structure. Here it elongates and becomes cylindrical, isn't it? Now this elongates. It first divide into two, followed by the division of the cytoplasm, and this gives two daughter nucleus, and this especially takes place in the unicellular animals. Next we'll see what is mitosis. Now in this cell division, one parent cell divides and give two identical daughter nucleus, and here the nucleus contains same amount of DNA, same number of chromosomes and genes. So since it contains same number of DNA and chromosomes, this is called as equational division. Now this mitosis consists of two events. One is the karyokinesis and the other one is the cytokinesis. Now this consists of the several phases. The first is the interphase. This is called as the resting phase because the cell prepare itself for this next cell division, and it is always an interval between the two successive cell division. Next is the karyokinesis. Now in karyokinesis, first the nuclei divide into two daughter nuclei, and this consists of four phases, which is called as the prophase, metaphase, anaphase and telophase. Prophase in the sense the first stage. Here what happens? The chromosomes become shorter and shorter. Now previously in the first phase, it is in the form of an thread-like structure, isn't it? Now here it becomes shorter and thick, and it will be clearly visible in the nucleus. Here the centrosome splits into centrioles and it occupies the opposite poles. In this stage, the centrosomes splits into centrioles and occupies the opposite poles. Now each centrioles is surrounded by a ray which is called as the aster rays. Now you can see in the picture, it is, isn't it, the rays that is formed, isn't it, a star-like structure? So that those are called as the aster rays. The spindle fibers appears between the two centrioles. Then next is the metaphase. Now in the metaphase, the duplicate chromosomes are arranged on the equatorial plane. Now here you can see it is arranged in the equatorial, in the center, isn't it? Now it is arranged in the center, and the spindle fibers that are present get attached to the centromere. The centromere of each chromosomes divide into two, and these are associated with the chromatid. Now here in the anaphase, what happens? This centromere attaching to the chromatid divide and move towards the opposite pole. They migrate towards the opposite pole. In the telophase, each chromatid or the daughter chromosomes lengthen, it becomes widen, right, and becomes thinner and thinner, and again turns into the networks, the spindle-like structure, the thread-like structures, and the spindle fibers breaks down and it disappears. Now we said that there are spindle-like fibers, isn't it? The spindle fibers break down and disappears. Now here the nuclear membrane and the nucleolus reappears in each of the daughter nuclei, followed by the karyokinesis. Next we have the cytokinesis. Now cytokinesis in the sense division of the cytoplasm into the two daughter cells by contraction. Now it contracts and divides into the two daughter cells. We'll see the significance of mitosis. Now in mitosis, since it is an equational division, the daughter nucleus consists of 2n chromosomes, that is equal distribution of the genetic material. Now in multicellular organisms, the growth, development, increase in the body size, it is accomplished through the process of mitosis, and mitosis helps in the repair of the damaged cells and helps in the formation of the new cells. Next is the meiosis. In meiosis cell division, the number of chromosomes is reduced from diploid to haploid, that is from 2n to n. So this is called as reduction cell division, and this meiosis produces 4 daughter cells from the parent cell, and this consists of 2 divisions, that is called as the heterotypic division, that is the first mitotic division, and the next one is the homotypic division, that is the second mitotic division. Now in the heterotypic division, it divides the diploid cells into 2 haploid cells. Now here you have the daughter cells, isn't it, that results from the parent cells. So that consists of the chromosomes which are the haploid in type, and here it consists of the 5 stages. The first prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase and the cytokinesis. Now in prophase 1, look into the picture children. This is the long stage. You can say it again consists of the following stages: the heptotene, zycotene, pachytene, diplotin and diakinesis. Now in heptotene, the chromosomes becomes uncoiled. It is a coil like structure, isn't it? So this becomes uncoiled and the thread like structures will appear and it will take a specific orientation that is inside the nucleus, and this formation is called as the bucket stage. The next one is the zycotene. Now here the two analogous chromosomes will appear, isn't it? Now they begin to pairing takes place, and this is called as the synapsis. The next one is the pachytene. Now in the pachytene, here the chromosomes will become visible and becomes a pair like structures. It pairs together and it forms bivalents. Now each bivalent consists of 4 chromatids and it will be an elongated one, isn't it? Here the homologous chromosomes begins to separate, and they do not completely separate, but at one particular point it get attached, and that is called as the chiastima. Now, as a result, what happens? The genetic recombination takes place. The next one is the diplotin. The homologous chromosomes try to repel one another and try to separate. Now, it do not completely separate, but it tries to move away from one another from the centromere, resulting in terminalization. Next is the diakinesis. Now, in the diakinesis, what happens? The paired chromosomes will become shorter and thicker, and the nuclear membrane and the nucleolus begins to disappear, and it will become an spindle fiber like appearance. The next one is the metaphase. Now here this is the metaphase 1, isn't it? Now here what happens? The chromosomes move towards the equator, isn't it? And then orient themselves along the equator. The next one is the anaphase 1. Now in the anaphase 1, what happens? Each homologous chromosomes move towards the opposite poles of the cell. Next is the telophase. Now in the telophase, the haploid number of chromosomes, after reaching their opposite poles, they becomes uncoiled and becomes elongated. Even the nuclear membrane and the nucleolus reappears, because it disappears, isn't it? In which stage? It disappears in the diakinesis, isn't it? Now here it reappears, and thus the 2 daughter nucleus will be formed. The next one is the cytokinesis 1. Now here this cytokinesis is the division of the cytoplasm. Here, isn't it? Now here the cytoplasm divides and the 2 haploid cells will be formed. Next is the homotypic division. Now in the homotypic divisions, the 2 haploid cells that is formed by the mitotic division that takes place in the first stage again divide into 4 haploid cells. Now here the daughter cells look similar to that of the parent cell, isn't it? Again this consists of 5 stages, that is prophase 2, anaphase 2, cytokinesis 2, metaphase 2 and telophase 2. In the prophase, what happens? The centrioles divides into 2 and moves towards the opposite poles. Now here the nucleus, again the nucleolus will disappear. Now again in the metaphase, the chromosomes arranged in the equator. In the anaphase, the separate chromatids becomes the daughter chromosomes and move towards the opposite poles. Now in the telophase, what happens? The daughter chromosomes are centered and the nuclear membrane and the nucleolus will reappear. Again the 2 cells formed from the haploid daughter cells result in the formation of 4 daughter cells, and here the chromosomes becomes half in number, that is haploid number of the chromosomes will be formed. So at the end of the meiosis, 4 haploid daughter cells will be formed, and it will consist of 2 divisions. Now let's see the difference between mitosis and the meiosis. Now mitosis takes place in the somatic cells. Somatic cells in the sense body cells. It takes place in the body cells which helps in the growth, etc. Now meiosis takes place in the reproductive cells, that is the gametes. Now here this involves in the growth continuously throughout the life, isn't it? Now here this involves in the gamete formation and it takes place only during the reproduction process. Now this mitosis consists of only single division. We saw only one division, isn't it? Meiosis we saw two divisions, that is the haplotypic division and the homotypic division. We saw two types of division, and in the phases also we saw prophase 1, prophase 2, anaphase 1 and anaphase 2, isn't it? So there are two divisions that takes place. Now in mitosis, two diploid daughter cells will be formed, while in meiosis, four haploid cells, that is n number of chromosomes will be present in the daughter cells. The chromosomes that is present in the daughter cells will be 2n in case of mitosis, and here the daughter cells consist of the n number of chromosomes. Now here in mitosis, identical daughter cells will be formed. Here the daughter cells are not similar to the parent cell. So this difference between the mitosis and the meiosis is a very important question. Now try to write this in your classwork. Now with this we come to the end of the lesson, children. Here we saw the plant tissues, animal tissues. The plant tissues are classified into meristematic tissues and permanent tissues, and in the animal tissues we saw the epithelial tissues, connective tissues, muscular tissues, nervous tissues, etc., isn't it? And in the cell division we saw what is amitosis, mitosis and meiosis. Now with this this chapter ends. Now from this chapter you will be writing the difference between xylem and phloem, meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues, difference between mitosis and meiosis in your classwork and the classwork in the school office. Let's see in the another session, children. Thank you.